We're ready. Yes, what slide you want to start from?
Oh, is it hot now? Oh, good. Okay, so I'm gonna go over. So remember, Keita, thank you so much for that answer. See, that's the table of the nations in Genesis chapter 10, and that's why Noah was the father of nations. So if you three, so Pastor, I'm not gonna really call on you, but Pastor, why don't you do me this favor? When we get to the exam, whoever raised their hands up first, like if this row raised their hand, this, if you would just kind of keep up and then just call on the person that raised their hand, will you do that for me? But hey, listen. You know what this is for? This is more, yeah, this is more relational than educational because somebody in here gonna know the answer. So you ready for me, Deke? You ready for me, Deke?
1 second. 1 second.
Okay, Deke is. Yeah, I just had a good chance. I was so glad that you all don't realize what a rush I was in, but you'll get to see. I'm glad I didn't just jump to the New Testament because I was going to go straight to Jesus and how we know Jesus is a brother and how he, hung out in Africa and spent tremendous time there and how he wasn't a blonde-haired, blue-eyed hippie. Okay, whenever we get ready, Deke, we're going to hit it. And so if you can go to like 14.
All right, what slide? Next slide?
Yeah, next slide. Oh, good. Yeah, this is the account of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's sons, who themselves had sons after the flood, the sons of Japheth. Okay, and then go to the next one, Deke. And so you all can see Noah's 3 sons. And so the son on the far right, Ham, that's who we're going to be dealing with tonight. Ham is the father of Africa. Okay, go to the next one, Deke. So I think that's going to be my question now. I'm going to get to the end of the session, and you're going to see that Canaan got cursed. Oh, yes, he did. It's in it. He said it's about the land. Who can take the land? He said when they colonized Africa, it was about the land. He said because once you get control of the land, And so here's the Garden of Eden. Now first we're going to read it, and I want y'all to read, because it's not just one word in here that refers to where the garden was. Go on, hit the next one, Deke. Now it says, a river watering the garden flowed from Eden. From there it was separated into 4 headwaters. So this river was separated, and it says the name of the first is the Pishon. You hear what I'm saying? You just saw that. It winds through the entire land of Havilah, which is Cush, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Aramaic resin and oxen are also there. The name of the second river is the Gihon, and it winds through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris, and it runs along the east side of Ashur, and the fourth is the Euphrates. So if this is the geographical boundaries of the Garden of Eden, right? So what you have to do is to say, oh, okay, so where is it? And so hit me with the next map, Deke. You gotta check this out. See, maps, because we don't know geography, you can see why we get in trouble and we can't understand scriptures. And this is critical. No, really, but once you start understanding the geography, you can go in and say, wait a minute, man, no, that's not right. Okay, hit the next one, Deke. Oh, there we go. See, so anyway, look up here. So you can remember where we talked about the Tigris, and you remember down below Mesopotamia, there is the Euphrates. And so you know that it is going around the area that Nimrod built. You can see that, right? That's the area Nimrod built. And so let's go. And so if you go down, so look where it says Saudi Arabia. If you look to the right, that's where those rivers, you can see right where those rivers were coming out of. So right up above, where you see the blue, to the right of Saudi Arabia, go up close to Iraq, then you'll come all the way down to Ethiopia, because it was in the land of Cush. That's the third geographical location, the Gihon. And it comes around. And so when it talks about the Garden of Eden, it's not just talking about a garden that you make in your backyard. It is talking about a place that is large as the United States of America. And so they had all this place. This guy had fruit, stuff to eat. He had animals. It was all, and he could wander anywhere. And God would always meet Adam there. And so when you look at the Garden of Eden, you've got to say, oh, it surrounded the land of Cush. It surrounded the land of Nimrod. These were all African brothers. And so that's why once we can begin to look and see this land, it's going to bless our hearts. Okay, you know what? I'm going to have to push it a little bit faster. Do you all understand Cush? So if I ask you, like next week, if I give you a little quiz, I'll ask you a question like, okay, I'm going to give you the answer. So if I would say, what's the first mentioning of the term Cush in the Bible? Guess where it is? The Garden of Eden. That's the first place it's mentioned. It talks about how it goes around the land of Cush. That's Africa. Or if I come up and I say, who was a brother that was one of the greatest brothers up through that time? He was a builder, because I'll add, just not mighty hunter warrior. I'm going to put builder, engineer, architect. He did it all. In order to do 2 major kingdoms, you could not be uneducated. This brother was brilliant. And so it's Nimrod. You can just see that this brother, and he had multiple wives. That's what they did back then. They had a lot of wives, and that's why they had babies so fast. That's why they grew out of their land so fast, because they all had multiple wives. Okay, and so that's Cush. Now I'm going to shift you to the second, and I'm going to move from Cush, and Deke, hit me on the second one. Deke, go hit the next one. So the next one is, bam. Thought you had me, boy. I say, Lord. Yeah, Mizraim. So Mizraim is who? It's Egypt. Now, I wanted you all to get a picture, because if I could choose anywhere in biblical days I could go spend my life, it would be in Egypt. When Moses left Egypt and went to the desert, I was like, how could you do that, Moses? Egypt's just beautiful. No, I'm telling you, and I know it's a trust God, but I'm telling you, so hey, look here. Do you remember when the Israelites I was trying to pull the verse up. When they were making bricks from straw. Yeah, see, these are the pyramids they built. These pyramids are over 5,000 years old. And look at it. I mean, look at the people at the bottom that are riding on camels. And then look at the bricks are like the size of this bench. It's as long as this bench. And they'll come up this high. And they're huge. And I'm like, how did he carry those? They set every brick in place on these pyramids. And so you've got one in the back, 2, 3, and then you've got 3 smaller ones in the front. And over history, they've really beat these pyramids up. People coming in through wars and trying to destroy them. But this is Egypt. I went to see these pyramids personally. Now, first of all, like they were trying to get me to get on a camel. I said, I don't do camels. A horse I can handle, but not a camel. But hit me on the next one, Deke. Or should I be saying Vera? There we go. But see, even you can see how the pyramid is in the back, but the Sphinx is in the front. And the Sphinx is so majestic. You could just see how its claws, this is like a lion with a human head, and you could see the lion's paw coming out in front. And the way the architectural, look at that airplane flying over. I just thought I had to put that in there. This shows you how massive it is. Now also, when Israel went to war with the Europeans, they had to deface them. Look what they shot off. They shot off their noses. They didn't want you to see that big old broad black nose. Not really. They didn't. And so, they would do target practice on their faces to try to get rid of all of the things that look like black people. Yeah, look at it. I'm telling you. That's what I'm saying. They should have been shooting the lips too. But can you see how they just totally went in and desecrated this holy place in Egypt? But Egypt was so majestic. Hit me the next one, Deke. And now here go the camels. I can see Elaine on one of these camels, flying on one of these camels. Look at her. And so, and then hit the next one. Yeah, and now these are the goddesses, how they would go in, and let me tell you, they had a relationship. You remember all of those, if you go read the book of Exodus, and you go and you hear about all these plagues on Egypt, that when Moses was saying, let my people go, these were all gods. Egypt had so many different gods that they worship. And so you can just see, but look how small, look at this statue and how it's built in the mountain, but look how small the people are when they go up to these temples. It is amazing. These places when I went there, I was like, I went to see all of it. I just said, Lord, I got to get all this. And I'm telling you, if you go see it, it's going to be hot. And so Egypt's a great place to go, and all this stuff is still there. Hit the next one, Deke. Now, I had to put this here. These are the tombs of kings and queens. And they made these tombs, and they were off the chain. And so a lot of these tombs, they would do crazy things with. And let me tell you this here. The Egyptians were so sharp. They were like one of the wisest countries in the world at that time. They were doing stuff that we do today. Like, for example, Egypt knew how to embalm a body. Can you imagine that these Egyptians had figured it out? We think, we're going to embalm him and keep him alive. No. Egypt had already figured it out. Look at this verse. Hey, give me the next one, Deke. Over in Genesis, listen what it says in Genesis 50:2-3. It says, then Joseph directed the physicians in his service to embalm his father Israel. So the physicians embalmed him, taking a full 40 days, for that was the time required for embalming, and the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. They were already doing that in Genesis. And so we think that we're sharp today, and I'm like, no. If you would have gone back to Egypt, if you would see the bricks that they made and how they're still together 5,000 years later, I'm telling you, I don't know a house that still exists that we've built that will be existing in 5,000 years. We don't do them. We don't do it that well. But these guys were brilliant. Then hit me on the next one, Deke. Bam, there you go. See, look at this tomb. See, so when a king died, let me tell you what they did with the kings. So can you see the multiple layers? When the king died, so let's say I'm the king. And let's say Phyllis is one of my servants, and she cooked me crab cakes. When I died, they put her in the tomb with me. Oh, really? Everything that you would need for the next life, they put in the tomb. And so they put people, and people would be dead. They would die in the tomb with them. And I'd say, Lord, have mercy. I didn't want to serve the king. But look at all the multiple levels, because they put his weapons there so that when he went to the next life, and if he had to fight, he would have all of his weapons there. He would have his finest garbs there. He'd have his jewelry in there. They put everything. And so when people would go in and attack Egypt, the first thing they went to were the tombs, because they knew the value of the stuff that's in the tombs. The king had everything in there. And like I said, there'd be skeletons, like 7 or 8 skeletons just laying in there. And they would be his servants and people who would go in and carry his umbrella. They put them all in there with him. And they would be living, but they die in there with him. And I just, yeah. So, and then you could just see the artistry. I mean, look at him. I mean, look at the artistry all around. And I mean, this thing is sacred. Death is sacred for the Egyptians. Okay, hit me with the next one, Deke. Yeah, and so this is just a picture of kings and queens. But I just wanted you to see just the royalty. I mean, can you imagine just going in somewhere, sitting down next to the two of them? I'm like, man, now this is royalty. And then I wanted you to see the daily life. Like they had funds, and look how nice and neat it is there. You just want to go up and down those streets just to say, man, what are they doing here? But Mizraim, they were wise. Egypt were wise. You remember in the New Testament who went there for 12 years of his life? Jesus. Jesus went to Egypt. That's where he went. And so when we look at Egypt, hit me with the next one, Deke. And so so I just wrote a couple of verses. It says, the wealth of Egypt and the merchandise of Cush and the Sabaeans, men of stature. Listen how this scripture is describing them. Shall come over to you and be yours. They shall follow you. They shall come over in chains, bow down to you. They will plead with you, saying, surely God is in you, and there is no other, no God besides him. And so he's talking about these guys of such stature. He names Egypt and Cush. And so Isaiah is saying, it's when people like that come and start bowing down to you, you know you're somebody. And so he was telling Israel, they're going to come and bow down to you, Israel, because of your relationship with your God. Hit me on the next one, Deke. And then I just threw this one in. Then they're passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph to Egypt. These were businessmen. Now these were like the ones that lived in the hood. They go, and so they had Joseph in a pit, and he was a slave. And so they said, so these were like the brothers from the hood who came to him, and I'll buy him, and then I can take him to Egypt and sell him. Because Egypt had a lot of slaves. They had an entire nation enslaved. Imagine the military power Egypt had. Imagine the political structure they must have had in place. Imagine the businessmen and women and the architects and engineers. Imagine all the people that had to pull this thing off. Well, that's Mizraim. And Mizraim had power. And so when you start thinking of Africa, okay, hit me with the next, you got to think, man, this place was awesome. And so here's the third son. And so now you see Cush, right? But now you see the beauty and power of Egypt. Just think of Egypt enslaved 2.5 million people. That's how many people were slaves. Think of the military it took just to oversee 2.5 million slaves. The military, that's Egypt. And then next we have Put. Now I'm gonna rush through Put. Okay, let's go, Dick, hit me on the next one. And so Put, you see Cush here at the bottom, Ethiopia, right? You see Egypt right above it. You see the little dark Ham up here. And then you see Libya over here on the side. Do you see that? So Libya is Put. Now notice what is right beside Libya and Egypt. That's the Mediterranean Sea. That's one of the most beautiful seas you'll ever go to. And so they lived high up, and when you looked at this sea, which meant they could actually get ships to come in and port and dock and leave merchandise. That made you even more popular. Ships would come in from Europe, they would come in from Asia, they'd come in from all over the world just to bring things there. And so when you start looking at all of the sons of Cush, they had access to water, and that's what made them so powerful, right? Okay, and so hit me on the next map, Deke. And so the next map said, there we go. And so what I want you to see is, if you look over at Arabia, you see Ethiopia down here at the bottom, and if you see Sudan, but then you see Egypt, that's the second son. So Ethiopia, Egypt, but then right beside Egypt, you see Libya, modern day Libya, that's Put. Now, if you go and look at Egypt and go right up toward, just go right up Egypt, that's where Canaan is, that's where Israel is. And so now you see the four sons. You see Ethiopia, you see Egypt, and you go outside, up above Egypt, outside of the blue line, that's Israel, and then that's Libya. All on the continent of Africa. Isn't that pretty? And so you see them. So let's go. Hit me again, Deke. I want to show you how pretty Libya is. Now, Libya is kind of confusing, but I want you to see it. Y'all don't hit it. Hit me on the next one. And so this is a picture. It is the most hilliest place. So like when you go to any of these countries, you better take some brand new shoes, because it's gonna walk you. I'm telling you, and it is high. You walk up hills. You don't just, it's not flat. You're always going up, and so you can just see it. Hit me with the next one, Deke. Yeah. Can you see how hilly it is? But can you also see the beauty of Put? Put was right there next beside Egypt. And so they would see people bringing in stuff from Egypt, and they go in and they come back and copy Egypt. Now, they were not as sophisticated as Egypt. They did not have as many people as Egypt, and they did not have the expertise in building like Egypt, but they always tried to compare themselves to Egypt. Then go to the next one. Yeah, you can just see some of the buildings that they had in Put or right here in Libya. And then hit me on the next one, Deke. See, look at that's the Mediterranean. And so they could go out there, man, and let me tell you, people go there to vacation all the time. And so they go down there and they have a whole lot of time right out there on the Mediterranean. And then hit me on the next one, D. And so now let me tell you about Cyrene. You've got to remember that name, because next week I'm going to use it a lot. Because Cyrene is in Libya. I'm going to show it to you on a map. Cyrene is in Libya. Now, I'm going to try you on something. I hadn't told you this. But who in the New Testament is from Cyrene? Can you tell me? I mean, just think about it. Just think about it a second. He's from, it's a guy. Hit me on the next one, Deke. I think it'll tell us. Yeah, well, it'll show us first. You see Libya, and right up next to the Mediterranean, you see Cyrene. And then if you go to the right of Cyrene, that's Israel. But then if you go to the right of that, you see Assyria, the Euphrates, and you see all that land that Nimrod founded. But you see Cyrene was critical in that time period. And then hit me one more time, D. And so, I'm just showing you another one, how close Cyrene is to the water. And then hit me one more time, and how Libya is off the water. And here it is, Mark 15:21. It says, a certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. It's Simon of Cyrene. He carried the cross of Jesus. And he's from Cyrene. He's from Africa. And so when Jesus was struggling with the cross, and what I try to tell people, don't depict that, you can't depict that wrong. Some people say, well, he was black, so it was probably a white man telling him to carry the cross. No, these were Africans to carry the cross. It wasn't a white guy over there. They didn't have Europeans. This was Africans. And so Cyrene, he's just one of the guys, and we'll talk a lot about Cyrene tomorrow or next week if you're able to come. We'll get to talk about him quite a bit, because you're going to see how Cyrene, especially in the book of Acts, you're going to see how God really used that in the scriptures and how they did some ruthless stuff too. And so we'll show you that. Hit me on the next one, Deke. Okay, so that was a quick showing of Libya. Did you all get a feel for Libya? Just a little bit. So who are the sons? So the first son is who? The first son of Ham is Cush. The second son of Ham is who? Huh? Mizraim, yeah, Egypt. And the third son is who? Is Put, yeah. Now here's the fourth son. Now this is the son that don't want to be claimed. No, it's Israel. They're still hiding. And so I'm going to show you Israel's trick. I'm trying to leave a little time so that you can ask questions. So let's go look at Israel real quick. Hit me, Deke. So let me tell you, I put this up there because I didn't like it, because this is a lie. Look how white folks, here's a problem right now. We don't control nothing as black people. So we don't control the press. Since they control the press, they can put the maps they want to put in that will pollute our minds. So first of all, look at this map. Now I'm just going to let you look at it. Do you see anything wrong with this map? What do you see? Yes. And the way that it looks, Jackie, is it's almost like the Middle East and Israel are different. Like it's almost like the Middle East is one area, Israel is another area. And I looked at it and I said, now that is just so messed up. How in the world can they, and then how far they put Asia away, as if it doesn't even exist in this area. And so I just said, man, these fools are tripping. Why would they even put this map in there? Okay, hit me with the next one, Deke. And so, well, yeah, this one is too small. I was trying to look this up. I was trying to get you to see Africa over here and how that area, Israel. But hit me with the next map. So this is a map of Israel. So do you remember when Jacob had those 12 sons? And what they did was they went in and he said, okay, first of all, I want you to take Canaan. And so you know what all that land is named after those 12 sons. That's what they did. He just named them after those sons. And so those sons became, so all of a sudden, you can see over here, kingdom of Amorites. Israel went in and kicked the Amorites out of Canaan. And so now you can see the Amorites over here on the side. The Moabites, the kingdom of the Moabites, Israel kicked them out of Canaan. And so they were like homeless. And so the Moabites moved their people over here in this little corner outside of, really out of Canaan. And so you can just see all the movement that is taking place. You can see the southern kingdom, which is Judah, and then right down here below, if you look below, that would be Egypt, and if you go up and to the right, that would be Libya. But this is Israel. And you can also see that Israel is across from Libya, because you see the Mediterranean Sea there. So it's a quick, if you wanted to get to Israel quick from Libya, you just jump in a boat. You don't walk, you get in a boat. Hit me with the next one, Deke. And so again, you can see Israel down at the bottom, and then you can see the two kingdoms divided up. And then hit me with the next one, Deke. Now, this is what I want you to see. Now, this is Jerusalem. There is one thing in Israel that has been known all over the world. That's the temple of David. In the war of 71 BC, they destroyed the temple of David. Now, they did not destroy it. You can see how these big walls exist there to protect the city. People live inside of the city, so if an army came up against the city, they'd have to get past the walls, because the walls are like from here to the top of the church. And so, but that gold thing in the middle, 1500, the Muslims took over. And they took the sacred place of the temple, and they built a place called the Dome of the Rock on the sacred place of the temple. They went in and took Jerusalem and built a Muslim temple, and today it still sits there. Hit the next slide, D. That's it right there. If you go to Jerusalem today, you're not going to see the sacred temple of Jerusalem. You're going to see that. And the Jews are still mad. If you go there, they want to kill everybody because a Muslim came in, took it, and built their sacred space on the same location as the temple. And I'm telling you, they have tons of trips going to Israel. You can go there and you can walk around. They won't let you go inside of it, but you can walk around it, on the courts. Hit me up with the next one, Deke. But this is all Jerusalem. Now look at those walls. You remember what Jesus says? A city that sits on a hill? That's what Jesus was talking about. Look, so if you're the enemy, right? And you come up there, hey, we're going to kill them. And you start walking up that hill, they'll roll boulders down the hill, and the boulders be killing folk. No, really, they didn't even have to fight or do anything. They just roll those boulders down. But you see how big and majestic that is? And they had water systems inside. They had wells so that when it would rain, they would have this water system that would collect all the rain, so they never had to come out. They just had the systems in place. And this was just one. And so this is Israel. And you will still see this today if you go there. You'd see this from the outside, and you can see the Dome of the Rock way up on top. It's still there. But you can't even imagine how big this is. And then give me the next one, Deke. And so if you go look at it, you see you see the sons of Ham, and you see Canaan on the far right at the top, and that line that comes in and curve and come down. These were all of the Canaanite tribes. And they first populated Israel. These are all of the tribes. Now remember I told you earlier about the curse? Hit the next one, Deke. See, this is the curse of Canaan. See, Canaan got cursed because of what Noah cursed Canaan because of what Ham did. Show me the scriptures, Deke. Listen what it says. Now, you know Noah was a drunk, right? I mean, he could drink some liquor. And so, no, really. And Noah was drunk as a skunk. And obviously, he took all his clothes off or something, you know? And so when he took all his clothes off, and I'm not being sexual, I'm just giving you the facts, right? So when he took his clothes off, it says when Noah awoke from his wine, see, he was drunk. You see what I mean? That's a thunderbird. He said he awoke from his wine and found out that his youngest son, what his youngest son had done to him. He said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers." See, can you imagine your daddy cursing you and saying, the lowest of slaves you're going to be to your brother? And a lot of times, you know, this is what people say, I don't know, but they said, you know, he went in and looked at him in a homosexual way. And I mean, that it was kind of sexual. And because his daddy's laying there buck naked. And so even though Ham goes in and looks at him sexually, his brothers goes in and then they get a sheet and they don't even look at his body. They walk in, you know, backwards. And they cover his body up. They honored him. And so all of a sudden, Noah wakes up and finds out, you know, what Ham had done. And then he cursed him. And I was like, oh, isn't that cold? God, don't hit me with the next scripture, D. He also said, praise be to the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. Can you imagine a father cursing his son to the point that may he be a slave to Shem? May God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem. And may Canaan be the slave of Japheth, not just the slave of one son, but the slave of both sons. And then that's why when you come in, that was fulfilled when the nation of Israel was led out of slavery, took Canaan and made Canaan slaves. That prophecy was fulfilled. You follow what I'm saying? So, you know, you got to be careful what you speak into your kids because, man, I mean, I'm sure that Noah didn't think that what was going to happen happened, but it did happen. Okay, and so, Deke, hit me. I think I'm close to the end, Deke. So, you can just see, here's the genealogy. You can see Canaan, the 4 sons of Ham. Hit me on the next one, Deke. But then you can also see Israel. In Genesis, you see the 12 tribes. In Numbers, you see the 12 tribes. In Revelation, you see the 12 tribes. These are the ones that are there today. So when you go there, you're going to say, where are you from? I'm from the tribe of Reuben. You know what I mean? You remember what Paul would always say? Paul would always tell them what tribe he was from. They take pride in which tribe. They still know today what tribe they came from. And so you'll see that. Okay, and I think that was, is that it, Deke? Okay. Okay, good. That's it. Okay, good. So, this is what I wanted you to see. Today I wanted to paint a picture of Cush. And Cush had power. Whenever I think of Cush, There are two things I think just quickly. Now I think of all of the children of Cush, but I think of, wow, Nimrod and the Garden of Eden. They all came out of Cush. Cush is talked about more in the Bible than any other children. He is constantly being talked about. So when David was the king and they needed a message to go to him, they got a Cushite. That brother ran and got that message. He ran past the other guys and got that message to David first. They got always, you remember Moses, he married a Cushite? And you remember Miriam and Aaron, they got angry because he married a Cushite? Cushites are powerful. So I wanted you to at least get a picture to say Cush is Ethiopia, and that's valuable. I wanted you to see Mizraim. That Mizraim he was sharp, man, and technologically this guy was on top of it. Egypt was the best at everything. And so I wanted you to see that piece. And then the next one, I wanted to make sure you saw just a glimpse of Put. And remember, Cyrene is in Libya, it's in Put. Because when we talk about the New Testament next week, we're going to talk a lot about, like in Acts. And they did some trifling things, and so we'll get to talk about that. And I want you to be able to pull that back to your memory. And then the fourth one was Canaan. He's a bastard child. He got cursed. But then you'll see, but when you think of Canaan, you got to think of Israel. And when you think of all four, you got to think of Africa. Does that make sense? So I'd love to have some questions. Hold on, let me look at my watch. Oh, no, I'm good. It's just 9 after 8. I have 6 minutes. Any questions? Wow, man, I tell you, that was the easiest teaching I've ever had with no questions. So let me just, so what we'll do next week, Pastor.
Can you draw from the curse of Japheth living in the tents of Shem?
I want to come because I can't hear you, Pastor. Is that on?
Am I on?
Okay.
Am I on? Is the mic on?
Okay, it's on now. It's on now.
Okay. Can you draw from the curse that Noah put on put on Canaan?
Yes.
That Japheth will live in the tents. Can you draw the colonization of Africa from that?
Oh, of course. And when I say
because they were the Europeans.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well. Hold on. Now, who's the European?
Japheth.
Huh?
Japheth.
Right. Yeah. And so when I see Japheth, I see that curse because remember that curse was given, but then when Japheth moved out, and the Canaanites were still there. And so I see that I see the curse as something broader. I see the curse as being fulfilled that when God took slaves, and so really Japheth moved out, and these were Africans, and so all of a sudden God took these slaves out of Egypt, and then that's the curse. They came from Egypt. They were broke, busted, disgusted. God parted the waters. They walked across the Red Sea, bam, and now all of a sudden they're taking this land. And they go in, and you remember the Jericho? When they went in from Egypt, God said, walk around 7 times and shout, and the wall's gonna come down. God is showing his miraculous wonders through all of that. And so I don't see the curse as European. I see the curse as God took a nobody and elevated this nobody called Israel. Because Israel, that's all they were doing is making bricks out of straw. I mean, they were working hard in the hot sun every day. And so this beautiful story as the fulfilling of the curse is God took this people in slavery and led them out. And then he elevated them and raised them up. And the thing about the Israelites, that's why when we come to the New Testament, the Israelites are the most prideful people you can imagine. You can see. You know what they say? We are the chosen people of God, and they're right. We're also the chosen. God. Paul says that we are the chosen of God. But they always had an arrogance, and so that's why when you see Jesus comes into the New Testament, guess who Jesus is running? Guess who gave him the hardest time? The Jews, the Pharisees. Guess who? All throughout the book of John, he's engaging in these wars with the Pharisees and these Jews who knew the word. And he's fighting them all the time because now they're pompous and arrogant. They don't take care of the poor. They don't look out the poor. God raised them up out of slavery and then raised them above all the nations. And then guess what? They start looking down on everybody else. And Jesus says, you are the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. You should be the model of how to love and serve the poor. You should be a model on love how to serve hurting people. You should be the model, Israel, because you know how it felt to be in chains. Now I've elevated you. And so whenever I see that, that's how I look at that. But I see as Japheth as, boom, he's gone. And Israel was just a whole different dynamic that was placed in it. Excuse me. And that was to show the power of God. Pastor, that's a great question, though. I hadn't thought of that before, but that's a great question. Anyone else? So did that give you a grasp of how Africa was formed? Do you see what I mean? So now do you see why I said we can't talk about African Americans? We can't put that in the Bible. We can't talk about slavery. Well, because the Bible mentions slavery, but the mess that the Americans did to black people was 10 times bad as what happened in the Bible. So we can't even compare the two. And at the end, if I can get to Paul, I'm going to show you that. That's good. You're going to say, okay, so Paul did respect slaves. And all that stuff that Paul said, he only said it because there was a system that he had to address, not because there was a system that he desired. And so you get to see a little of that then. So next week, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you the people from these 4 different groups. So I'm going to show you, like, I'm going to take the Cushite and a brother from Ethiopia, and we'll talk about him. We're going to talk about more about this wonderful brother who carried the cross from Jesus. We're going to go through the book of Acts, and you're going to see how all these people from Africa constantly impacted the scriptures. They were always impacting the scriptures. And I just think it's going to bless you like never before. And then if we have an extra week, then I'll do the slavery piece. Is that good? Oh, let me close this in a word of prayer. Oh, Jesus, we love you so much. And Father, we know that this was a long evening, Father. Anytime you have to sit and listen to anybody for over an hour, that's a long evening. And we're grateful that you gave us the attentiveness to be here. Father, we thank you because this is family. And so, Father, we thank you for bringing us together. We thank you for really opening our eyes to this wonderful move of Africa and the Bible, and pray that you continue to grow us in it. We love you. We thank you. Protect us as we leave this place, Father. And I pray that even as we leave this place, we never leave your presence. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, let me just tell you one other thing. So I'm working on something. And so everything that I'm saying, now I'm going to put in a document. It's just so that you can have it, right? And so, I mean, it's not going to be book form, but it's just going to be me taking notes of everything I said. And everything that I said, and I'm going to put pictures, and all the pictures I show you up here, I'm going to be putting pictures in there, and I'm going to be referring to them as diagram 5, and you'll know where to go to, and then you can just really get a piece of what this really looks like. Is that okay? So, because the key is not, I hate to tell you, if I come back in a year, you probably will forget all this. But if you have a document you can pick up and read it, then you can remember it, right? And so I did decide I'm going to write it up, and I'm not checking it so that it can be proficient grammatically. I'm writing it up so that you'll have a copy of all my notes, and anything that I've said, like all these slides will be in there. Every slide you saw today, like when I get to Egypt, you're going to see all these pictures. Now, the thing's going to be is copying them, because it's going to probably be about 40 pages each. And so just be praying for copying. But that's the only thing that we're going to do. But I just think it's important that when you leave here, you don't just simply leave here with your notes, but if you ever want to look back. Is that good? Thank y'all so much for being here.